Today, as we kick off the week and start to really settle in to some more of the practicalities around the questions you can ask yourself as you merge money and meaning in your business. I want to pick up where I left off last week. So we talked about the fact that there was a lot of overwhelm and a lot of leaders currently struggling with decision fatigue around just the amount of decisions that we're needing to make and the rapid change of the environments that we're working and operating in. So we spoke quite a lot about that and the need for clarity, the need to have customized decision-making filters within our businesses. And then as we got to the end of the week, I gave you some of the sort of more practical examples of how do we start to shift from thinking like a system to acting like an entrepreneur and doing that kind of dance between those two spaces. Today, I want to talk to you about those pieces, like I said, where there's the questions that you can ask yourself as you start to merge money and meaning. And I'm going to talk you through 3 different areas of questioning that you can start to play with. So let me run you through the 3 areas for questions. The first is around drilling into what do you actually care about. The second area is around looking at where you have influence and control. And the third is about how you're actually going to make it happen, how you're going to put into play or make these ideas around contribution and meaning play out in the world. So the first one, let's drill in terms of, for those of us that are running organizations and are starting to think about the aspects of the purpose of business being broader than just profit maximization. So wanting to unapologetically run a financially stable business that is doing well on that financial side, but also being at a point where we absolutely know that there is more to business and more to life than just maximizing profit. And so we're trying to say, through our business, through the decisions we make, how we operate the business, how do we bring back together money and meaning and do both of those things well and unapologetically? So not compromising on either. So in this space of the first category of questions to ask yourself as you're trying to merge money and meaning, we need to look at, what do you actually care about? Now, depending on the size of your organization and the ownership structure, that may be quite a personal question. If you're the founder and the sole owner of the business, this aspect will be heavily tied to you as an individual and flow into the business. If you are one of a number of owners or it's a family business, then there may be a broader collective group that has significant sway over the aspects of what it is that you focus on and care about. And that might push you more into the category of coming at these questions related to the organization as a collective rather than you as an individual. So you know the particulars of your business. So just frame and tweak these questions so that they work for you. So in this first category, I want you to think about, are there particular things that you are positively drawn to in terms of a cause or an issue out there in the world? Or are there things that you're fighting against? So in this first category, play with it and see what comes up for you more. Are there things that you're drawn to, wanting to positively contribute to? Or are there things that pop into your mind where you are fighting against them? They're wrong, it's an injustice, you want to be part of changing something. So just sit with those pieces as it relates to either you as an individual, if you're at that stage of business, or for the business as a broader collective. and think about some of these aspects of what it is you care about. So use that question as the first exploration point to dive in, think, journal, reflect. The second way you might want to think about this to see what comes up for you is to ask, are there particular issues that you really care about contributing to? So you could dig into this by looking at, where do you currently give money or give pro bono time or donate your products or services as a business? That might be a really good way to hint at or give you ideas of whether there's some patterns or themes emerging of what it is you care about. If, when you look back historically, you as an organisation have consistently been donating to or contributing to issues around education or homelessness or women and domestic violence, trying to support people escaping those situations. If there's a theme emerging when you start to ask these questions within the first category of what do you care about, then I want you to really capture that, journal about it, take some notes, and identify what it is that comes up in this category of what do you care about. We're then going to move into the second category of questions, which is around influence and control. So I started to speak on Friday about the fact that the European Commission has identified that over 80% of the environmental impacts of products actually can be traced back to being coming from decisions that were made right back at the design stage of a product. So on Friday, when we discussed that, I gave you different examples and talked about the fact that when we move from thinking like a system to acting like an entrepreneur, we need to start to focus in on what are the things we have decision-making control over. Next level out, where do we have some kind of influence? That conversation taps into this second category of questions today around influence and control. So in this category, the things I want you to reflect on, think about, maybe take some notes or journal on, are what are the levers that you can actually pull to make an impact or some kind of contribution to this particular issue or theme that emerged for you in the first category around what you care about. So what levers could you pull? If, for example, you identified that you were already consistently giving to, investing in, donating to issues around entrepreneurship and building entrepreneurial skills in women in developing countries, for example, then you might look at, okay, well, what are the levers we could pull? And you might say, well, we actually have amazing online programs and resources inside our business and really skilled trainers that can contribute to those particular areas. So you say, okay, I may not know yet exactly what I'm going to do with that, but I'm going to capture that some of the levers that we could pull would be around the IP and the human capital that we have that has amazing skills and methodology around entrepreneurship and training entrepreneurs. The next question in this category around influence and control is, where do you have control and decision-making rights? So you might say, well, we have control over who we buy from in our own supply chain. And you might decide that one of the aspects related to that is that you're not currently being really thoughtful or intentional about where you buy different products from or who you procure different services from. And that could be an area where you start to be able to connect it back to what you care about. And you might say, if we've identified that we care about entrepreneurship and building up entrepreneurial skills in women in emerging or developing economies, then you might say, how do we actually have someone on the team start to build out a preferred suppliers list, so that when we're doing Christmas gifts or team incentives and aspects at our quarterly retreat, or buying cards or other gifts, how do we have a go-to list of different female-owned businesses around the world, entrepreneurs who have products or services that we could buy, and start to intentionally insert those into our own supply chain, into our own procurement practices, so that when we're spending money where we have decision-making rights over it, we're doing it in a way that connects to something we care about. Hopefully that makes sense in terms of, again, I'm not asking you these questions just to be an interesting thing to journal about. I want you to always be connecting the dots to how does that change how you run your business? How does that influence or become one of the factors that plays into how you make decisions? So that's the second question in this category. The third and final question around influence and control moves from the control piece to the influence. Where do you have influence? So in this area, you might start to look at things like your human capital. So within your organization, what kind of networks and relationships do you have? Where are there aspects where you could start to influence the way others are thinking or the decisions other people are making? Is it that you have influence with your own customers, and that if you started to model to them different ways of really practically contributing to something like entrepreneurship in emerging countries, then they might actually be influenced to change their behavior. So that's just following along that particular thematic of the example I gave you. So whatever it is for you that's emerged in bucket one around identifying what you care about, as we move into the influence and control aspects, we're trying to connect the dots and identify in our own business the ways we could weave these things back in together. The third box of questions that we're going to get you to think about today is around then making it happen. So if you've identified through your reflections what it is you care about and some of the themes there, either that you are proactively wanting to contribute to, or issues that you are reacting against, pushing against, you've started to identify the aspects where there's levers you could pull, decisions you could make differently, or areas where you have some influence. As we move into this third category and get really practical, I want you to ask the questions around, do you actually have the skills and experience, as well as the resources, to contribute to this particular issue in the way you want to? So it might be that when you asked yourself the questions in that second category, there was a few areas where you could think of ideas of how you could connect the dots and start to make some different decisions and contribute more meaningfully to those areas you care about. But there might be quite a limited crossover or scope for where your business could have a direct impact into that area. If that's the case, and you don't actually have the right skills or experience or resources to really, contribute in meaningful ways, then who do you need to partner with? So the second question here in this category is around, who would you need to partner with? What do you need to learn or acquire in order to contribute to that issue that you care about? So that piece is about, again, being more realistic, that no one person or one organization is the answer or can claim attribution for creating impact or changing important, complex issues. And all you're trying to do is to identify some of those points where you can contribute, be more tuned into and clear about what it is you even want to contribute to. And then now, as this rubber hits the road and you get into making it happen, it's starting to know what you can contribute, do that intentionally, but then actively seek out the right partners to help your contribution go to the next level. And that may be about starting to use some of those networks we talked about that you have influence over. It might be about finding an organization you can partner with so that rather than expecting your own team or yourself to have to become an expert in a particular area, you can keep staying in your lane, doing what you do best, and you can find another partner that you could then support with your skills, with the areas of your own expertise, your IP, methodology, human capital, etc. And they can do what they do best. So partnering and collaboration is a critical aspect of starting to be more realistic about how we merge money and meaning. We don't have to all care about the same things. We don't have to all become experts on every topic, but we do need to understand what it is we care about, where we can add value, and then identify those that we can partner with to collectively contribute in the way we want to areas that we care about. I hope that's been helpful. I'm going to share a little graphic with each of those 3 categories and the questions in case you want to come back to it and reflect on those some more. I really would encourage you to spend a bit of time, actually capture your ideas and notes, and start to create as part of your practice, always connecting the dots back into what does this mean in my particular business? How am I now going to make decisions differently? How am I going to actually start to have these insights and this clarity influence my decision-making and the actual way I operate and run my business?